Because we continue to witness people criticize our child-free lifestyle, I was more than happy to speak on the child-free life when I was invited to be a part of a debate for the Mark Dolan Show. Here's what happened.
To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome Andrea Williams, a good friend of mine, the CEO of Christian Concern, and a warm welcome, live from the United States, to Veronica, co-founder of the Childfree Connection and creator of the ultimate guide to embracing a child-free life. Veronica, welcome to GB News.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And no small kids around to disturb this Zoom call.
No, not at all. My puppy's somewhere, so he might want to jump in, but no.
You've got a puppy, that's sure. Even more work. Now, obviously, I fully respect your decision, Veronica, not to have children. What was behind that decision? Why are you child-free, if that's not too personal a question?
No, not at all. I am child-free for many reasons. Initially, my idea was that I, of course, was going to have children because that is just what you do. And the more I thought about it, I realized that I didn't really have the desire to be a mother. So my child-free journey was really long because although I didn't want to choose the path of motherhood, I had so much ambivalence because people kept telling me that I was making the wrong decision, that I was going to regret it, that I was being selfish, that it was essentially the biggest mistake of my life. So I had to do a lot of self-evaluation and self-work to come up with the right answer.
Have you been criticized for not having children, or have you had those annoying questions about when you're going to have babies?
Oh, so much, so much. I would say most of my late 20s and all through the 30s. I'm 46 now, and I still get it because now women are having children later. The maintenance person in my building just told me the other day that his daughter had a child at 50, so that I still had time. So yeah, I get it all the time.
And how does it make you feel?
Well, it used to make me feel terrible. It used to make me feel like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have this desire that all women have? Why am I not craving this need to procreate? So it was very confusing. And I also felt less than because people just kept telling me how wrong I was. And people kept telling me that, again, it was the biggest mistake I was going to make in my life. So it was terrifying. It was terrifying to make a decision that is definitely the biggest decision that a person can make according to the trajectory of their lives, and everyone around you telling you that you're doing the wrong thing.
Yes. What motivated you to form the Childfree Connection?
Well, the motivation was because I realized that I initially thought that because so much time had happened between my personal experience and now, I thought that we were at a point where it was more accepted. And I realized during the pandemic, when I read an article talking about how in the workplace, child-free people were expected to pick up the slack, that it wasn't. And by the way, it's not that I don't expect people to help others. You should help people in need if you're able to, but it was more about the expectation that child-free people are doing nothing else, have no other responsibilities, and that they should be picking up the slack. So that initiated my research, and then I just went into a giant hole, and I realized that people need the support, they need the guidance, they need the facts, they need the research, and they need to be celebrated for their choice.
And how has your partner felt about your decision? Because I guess one of the dilemmas for a woman that doesn't want to have a child is how the husband or boyfriend feels, because they may not always be on the same page when it comes to the desire to reproduce.
Yeah, that absolutely can happen. I met my partner now when I was almost 40. So at that point, I was very grounded and confident and solid in my decision. And he actually was as well. So we personally didn't have to have that debate of, are we going to, are we not, because one of us does and the other one doesn't.
Could he have convinced you to have babies if he was persuasive?
Absolutely not. Mm-mm. No.
Andrea Williams, welcome back to the show. What's your reaction to what you've heard from Veronica?
Well, let me say this, that in my 20s, I was starting out as a young barrister and very content, and was married at 25. And I wondered, I didn't know at that point whether or not we would be able to have children. I wasn't yearning for a child. And then my firstborn came along, and I simply couldn't get over her. It was the most extraordinary, beautiful thing imaginable. I felt like no one had ever given birth before. And this is the beauty of children. This is the blessing that they are. And I've gone on to have 3 more, and they are wonderful and beautiful blessings. And I think this is something that it's natural, it's beautiful, it's the most wonderful way. It's the most wonderful way to live if you are blessed and you are gifted with having these children. And so I think that first of all, we need to celebrate the joy that children bring us, and also recognize that was, in a sense, that this is something that actually makes society go round. This is what family is, and we should begin to celebrate that a little bit more. In your previous section, Tommy was talking about the compass of life is gone. It's as if we've lost our marbles as a nation. And there's a sense in which we mustn't over-individualize everything. Family is actually about self-sacrifice. It's self-sacrifice with husband to wife, self-sacrifice in what you do there, but also then the joy of having children within that relationship and within that construct.
Would you say, and I know you're a very spiritual person, would you say it's your spiritual duty to have children? Do you think it's the will of God to have babies?
Well, I think what I'd say is I'd actually ask another question. I'd frame it a little bit differently, that question. There's a sense in which if we think back to the 1960s when the pill came in, it was at that point that sex became something, in a sense, that was almost viewed as more recreational, when in fact the fundamental purpose of there's a sense in which it's not just recreational but procreational, and there's a sense in which we want to deny that as a society, because we so individualize this all of this, as if there is no consequence to commitment and no consequence to the acts that we do. And I think that we need to realize that having children is a natural product of commitment to one another, and the beauty of sexual expression between a man and a woman when they are committed to one another. And I think it's when we lose all sense of moral compass generally in society, when we reduce sex to being something that's very individualistic or recreational, then some of these issues, I'm not talking about necessarily big choices, but I'm just talking some of the issues around these subjects begin to be debated.
Veronica, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, this. First, let me backtrack to something that you said earlier, because this really baffles me. I feel so strongly that whenever I speak about my child-free choice, or anybody speaks about it, parents tend to think that we are saying that they are doing something wrong, or that we're against it, or that we don't understand their joy. So when they speak about their joy, their fulfillment, their everything, that the children are bringing them so much happiness, we understand that and we respect that. But I want to say that is for you. That is the joy that the kids bring for you. It's not for everybody. It's not an individual choice that you can't put everybody in the same box. And it's such a personal choice that people need to make their own decisions. And it also baffles me that people who have children and physically, mentally, spiritually, verbally abuse them are revered for having them over someone someone who's child free, we have thousands of people in our community in the Child Free Connection who serve their community. They're educators, they're nurses, they're doctors. They take care of their elderly parents. They take care of their sick siblings. They take care of their siblings' kids. It's the reason that they have so much responsibility already that they're not taking any on, because they are just giving and giving and giving. And the only way to give is not through being a parent. There are so many other ways to do it.
Andrea?
The truth, of course, it's wonderful to give in many ways, but actually a family unit, a commitment between a man and woman within marriage, the natural consequence of that is to have children. And that is something that is out, and it's not that people then within a family are unable to give more broadly. It's something more broadly to the community and more
however,
generally. Very often there's a sense in which capacity can almost grow.
Andrea, doesn't
family,
I've got no doubt, Andrea, that you're a brilliant mum, but doesn't that sentiment that families, that a relationship is there to produce children, doesn't that guilt trip somebody like Veronica? And isn't it good on her for not having children if she doesn't want them? Because there's nothing worse than having a child in the world who is not wanted.
Well, let me say I'm in a sense making no judgment around in terms of how Veronica chooses to live her life. She is free to choose to live her life in this way. But I'm simply making the case for the beauty of children and the way in which naturally that is the most wonderful foundational building block.
Sorry to interrupt you, Andrea, but aren't there already too many unwanted children in the world? Don't we need more parents sitting down and having a think, actually, do we want this responsibility? Are we up to the challenge?
And I'd say then there are many people in this world who are unable to have children and would love to be able to look after those children that perhaps are unwanted. There's a sense in which we can, when we are altruistic, when we actually seek the good of our community, when we seek the good of our community through solid marriages, solid families, and serving into the community, then a lot of those things can actually be worked through and worked out.
Well, there's an
I just want to be clear on the word family, because you've been using that word.
We've over-individualized the whole of life.
Okay, Veronica.
Okay, so you keep referring to the word family, but I just want to be clear that the word family, by your definition, is a traditional family where there's a mother, a father, and children. But people are now finding their own families that do not include children, and they consider themselves a family. I consider me, my partner, and my dog a family. People consider themselves a family when they're just in a group of home with friends that really care and love one another. Some people do not consider their blood relatives family because they have been very abusive and caused them a lot of trauma. So your definition of family is extremely traditional, and I respect that that is your view, but the idea of family has changed over the years.
Well, look, a fascinating...
But where there is a mum and a dad, and a marriage commitment, a lifelong marriage commitment, and children flow from that, and then generation to generation, you see the love and the commitment amongst that family, then you see human beings flourish. And of course, I, as a Christian, would say that's because that's the way God intended for it to be, and that actually the whole of the something that's about a mutual giving, from which children flow, and then we look after one another within a family unit, and from that comes the flourishing for those individuals, security for those individuals.
Closing thoughts, Veronica.
This is a very romanticized version of family. It's extremely romanticized to assume that the whole family is going to take care of each other, that the children are going to thrive and be members of society that are loving and that are helping and that are caring and have the right values. And yes, it happens, but it also doesn't. There's a lot of bad things happening in the world right now. And those are children that were born into this world. And also, not to mention the fact that there are plenty of people, and you can just Google it, that regret having children. And because they were not able to make the decision for themselves, perhaps they were pressured, perhaps they just did it to give their parents, grandkids, whatever perhaps their partner really wanted them to do it. These are all not reasons to have children. And now here we are, like you mentioned, with all these unwanted children in the world. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just really doesn't.
It's a fascinating conversation. I wish we had longer, but my deep thanks to both of you. Andrea Williams, the CEO of Christian Concern, and Veronica, co-founder of the Childfree Connection and creator of the ultimate guide to embracing a child-free life.
As you saw, I still have so much more to say on this topic. I would love to hear your reactions to this video in the comments below. And if you want to know why millennials and Gen Zers aren't having kids, watch this video where I break it all down for you. We thank you, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.